Pauline said it first, clear as day. One nation will end net zero, end the renewable energy zones, end the transmission corridors carving up ag land. No more wind turbines on farm country. No more solar factories swallowing paddocks. No more billions for rewiring the nation while farmers get locked out of their own properties. Coal stays, gas stays, nuke gets a fair go. Subsidies from the net zero experiment, gone. That's their policy. That's what Pauline has said. Then Matt Canavan from the Nationals stood up and said almost exactly the same thing. Scrap net zero, stop locking up land, put reliable, affordable power first. The majors who always voted for net zero and these renewables suddenly sound like one nation. It's not new. This is the oldest play in Australian politics. In 1996, Pauline Hanson walked into the Australian Parliament and said what most Australians were thinking. She talked about the immigration invasion, Indigenous policy becoming outrageous, and the economic priorities that are just being thrown out the window for the sake of wokeness, even before the word woke. John Howard didn't attack these ideas head on, but when he needed the votes, he absorbed these policies into the coalition's policy. Things like they introduced tighter controls for the family reunion of immigrants, temporary protection visas, harder lines on asylum seekers. He said, we decide on who comes into this country and in which way they come. He mainstreamed Pauline Hanson's policies. He also mainstreamed their services, had a bit of a scepticism on the native title expansion. There was rhetoric about job snobs and the welfare system. Hanson herself, back then, said Howard sailed home on one nation policies. Independent observers at the time did document this pattern, but it was decided that it wasn't in their interest to keep it going. Policies that once were extreme became bipartisan policy as soon as the votes were needed and the Uniparty needed to get together to break Pauline Hanson and One Nation. Labor were never immune to all of this. They had tighter border protection. They even hardened the temporary visa system. And they also later made moves on reducing or limiting foreign investment. All ideas One Nation pushed hard early on, and still do. The pattern is very consistent. When One Nation builds ground against any of the Uniparty, the majors pinch the popular bits, water them down, and make them their own. Then after the election, of course, they either water them down further or just completely drop them. And let's bring it back to today. Net zero was locked in under the coalition. Labor turbocharged the renewable rollout. They introduced all the renewable energy zones, which include, of course, these massive transmission projects that are ripping up the entire country. And places like 70% of Victoria need to be under solar panels and wind turbines to fulfill their demands. So the rural communities are paying for it. We've got compulsory access to put these power lines in, or daily fines. Visual impact to all of the pristine country. There's land use conflict. Basically, once these things go up, then the rules change and you can no longer farm underneath them. Of course, your power bill's gone up, not down because of these renewables. Manufacturing in this country has been destroyed, and just recently, Labor's put in $100 billion into saving things like Tomago and a few of their other mates' businesses. One Nation said no from the start. End the targets, end the subsidies, protect some rural land, and build dispatchable power. Now, under Canavan, they've abandoned net zero, in words only, because they still believe in a zero target. Parts of the broader coalition are competing to sound the toughest on migration numbers and foreign ownership of land and foreign ownership of farms. And of course, energy prices, but still none are committing long term. Labor's already borrowed One Nation adjacent moves, temporary pauses or restrictions to foreign buyers, talk of bringing migration under control. Same script, different decade. The majors do not lead on these issues. They follow the pressure. When the regions roar, they copy the language. When the election is won, the hard commitments soften and the planned transmission corridors and solar factories stay. Net zero timelines stretch rather than end. Land use conflicts drag on. One Nation is the only party that has made ending net zero, ending the zones, ending the corridors on agricultural land a non-negotiable central plank. Not a late conversion. Canavan's promise is welcome. But history says, watch what happens after the votes are counted. Us Australians in the regions, we've seen this movie before. They get the slogan, then they have the election. Then we get the compromises after. If ending net zero and protecting farmland from the renewable industrial complex is what you actually want, remember who said it first, who has said it consistently, and who has the record of watching the majors adopt their words, then quietly move on. It's not one of the majors, it's One Nation. Their policies keep getting taken. The voters keep getting left behind. So next time the majors suddenly discover that they hate transmission lines and all these renewable projects on farmlands, remember this. They didn't invent it, they borrowed it. And if you want the real thing, not the watered down version that disappears after election day, then vote for the party that said it first. End net zero, protect our lands, and put Australia first. That's what I'm doing.